Standing room only for an event full of PhDs is really impressive.
You must not be in academia.
Well,
There were free LaCroix. It's like, obviously, we're all here.
But did you promise any food?
we have snacks.
Okay, yeah, that's why it's a room
That's
full of
enough.
PhDs. Yeah, come on.
Well, before we kick off to this incredible panel, I have to take a minute to just tell you why we're all here. First of all, thank you for coming. Just a quick show of hands. Who here has a PhD or is in their PhD program?
Damn. That
That's
was a
awesome.
lot of bad decisions.
You'll notice I didn't raise my hand, so apologies if my questions aren't as insightful as yours would be. Quickly on where we are. This is South Park Commons. Started about 10 years ago in San Francisco as a space for deep technical exploration. Some of our earliest members in our learning community were the founders of Anthropic, first researchers in OpenAI, Goodfire. And the thesis was, how do you create a space of talent density for really smart people to explore what's at the frontier? A couple of years ago, we decided to open up in New York in a small space, and last year we opened up this space to really try to be a community hub for the next wave of incredible innovation and research in New York. Our community is equity-free. We really just want to bring smart people together. And then, yes, we do have a fund to hopefully invest in what comes out of it, but that's obviously secondary to bringing smart people together and hoping that great things happen. So if you're interested in learning more about SPC, you can email me afterwards. Susanna there with the camera, Jonathan on our team over there. And then there's a bunch of SPC founders spattered in the audience, so we've also paid them to say nice things. So with that said, I'm going to kick it off. We've got 4 incredible panelists. I'm going to let each of them take a minute to just explain who they are and what they're working on.
So I'll start. I'm Tara Sainath. I work at Google. I lead the Gemini audio pillar. We work on various audio applications with LLMs, speech recognition, dialogue generation, translation.
I'm Jonathan Frankle. I'm chief AI scientist at a startup called Databricks. And I was formerly one of the co-founders of Mosaic ML back in the day. Databricks bought us about 2.5 years ago.
I'm Stephen Roller. I work at Thinky. I mostly work on pre-training.
What you building?
Yeah, what's coming out?
AI.
Sweet. My name is Alex Wiltschko. I'm the founder and CEO of Osmo. We're digitizing our sense of smell.
I'd like to start the conversation. I think we have a lot of people here interested in either they're currently in academia or in research roles and the transition from that to the private tech sector. Looking back to when all of you guys were finishing your research, what was the triggering point to not staying in academia and moving private?
Burning out and then making some more money than I was making before. Just being honest.
Money.
I can add. So audio is very experimental. So I actually always wanted to go to academia, and then I did 2 internships at IBM. And I think the resources with respect to chips, with respect to data that industry had compared to academia was what sort of swayed me. And I can always give talks or teach lectures staying in the industry anyways. I still publish papers, or I used to.
Should we also ask you what you're working on these days? Any new models coming out?
We just released one yesterday.
Fair.
Check Twitter.
Man, I gotta get Twitter back. No, I got a cold email from this guy named Naveen saying, hey, want to do a startup? I was like, who the hell are you? And thankfully didn't mark it as spam. No, but I was supposed to stay in academia and be a faculty member, and I was just having too much fun, honestly. The ability to hire people who had PhDs as opposed to hiring people who didn't have PhDs, the ability to have thousands of GPUs instead of a dozen GPUs. I remember my faculty application was for 30 V100s, which just sounds comical at this point. And honestly, it's really nice to have a team of people that have relative work-life balance and have a lifestyle that's relatively normal. I feel really good for the people who, go home and can afford a nice apartment in New York, because that's not so easy in academia. So it's nice. You can kind of have it all.
For me, I was in neuroscience and academic biology, and the feedback cycles are super long, and the feedback comes through citations of papers you write. And so the citations come years after you write the paper, and the paper comes a year after you do the stuff. And you kind of know it's going to work or not, like a year before you start doing the grindy control experiments. And so like that dopamine feedback loop is very difficult. You have to really love what you do. And I did. It just like the whole like arc in society and culture of academia, like just kind of didn't do it for me after a certain point. But meanwhile, like this whole AI, ML, we just called it machine learning at that point, but the whole ML thing was like taking off. And I could build things and get instant feedback with those folks and like sell it to people. And so I got really hooked on that feedback loop. I missed the science later because I was very deep in the engineering. I ended up getting back into that and kind of finding a balance. But initially, it really was just like I don't feel satisfied. I want faster. You know, I want it to go faster.
I do find it interesting that you said work-life balance. I don't know, familiar you are with the 996, but
Well, academia is a, it's more of a, like, I guess, what, a 2-12-20 or 2-12-7. You might get 2 hours of sleep depending on the occasion. No, I think the ability to have a little more long-term stability, because it is a little more long-term oriented. Academia is not always long-term oriented in terms of lifestyle. There's a lot of grinding. There's a lot of really tight deadlines. There's a lot of being under-resourced and overworked. And there's plenty of that in industry as well. But under-resourced in industry means you only have thousands of TPUs instead of tens of thousands of TPUs, or you only have 10 headcount instead of 20 headcount. And it's a very different kind of under-resourced. And none of this is academia is not bad. Like I'm sure there are redeeming quality. No, my mom would have been very happy to say her son was a Harvard professor. So there are redeeming qualities. But I don't know, industry has been a lot of fun in this particular era.
Now, I'd push on the 996 thing. So in my experience in my travels, academia tends to be a bit more monocultural in the sense that the culture from lab to lab is actually much different than from company to company. And so there's a great, like a Cambrian explosion of different anatomical and physiological forms and companies you can join, greatly diverse cultures. And some of them are 996. Some of them are not. I mean, really everything more extreme and less extreme of that. And so you kind of get to pick the culture. If you're founding a company, you get to build the culture. In fact, you should be very intentional about building the culture you want. So there's just more diversity. You can go way crazier and you can go way more lax. And you got to find the Goldilocks for you.
Like, I'm not sure if I would say my job is 9 to 5. Still probably the hours of academia. But I think the access to compute, the access to resources, and maybe another thing is in academia, it's like you are the only expert with PhD students around you. But I talk to like 25 other experts every day. And so I feel like I have become a much stronger researcher over time because I'm surrounded by many more experts who do exactly what I do.
Team sport, yeah.
I wanted to ask about, you guys all in different forms talked about resources. Is that a post-ChatGPT thing that?
No.
No.
Yeah. This
Yeah,
has
definitely
existed
not.
since I finished grad school. That was the reason I chose not to go to academia.
Elaborate a little bit, because I think.
So like in my world in biology, the counterpart is biotech. I mean, instantly you think of, huge resources and big pharma companies. And startup biotechs have less, but there's always been the ability to get the resources you need to do the experiment that you need, right? So the money is tied to the goals if the companies run well. And if the goals are ambitious, the money will match that. And hopefully you can raise that and then raise for the next goal. Whereas in academia, the funding model is fundamentally capped, right? So in biology, the largest sum you'll get is an R01 unless you're running a foundation. That's like, I think, $1 million or $2. And so the unit of like discovery you can do is $1 million large. That's it. And again, unless you're attached to a larger foundation. Not all knowledge fits in $1 million. That's not a rule, right? In fact, some knowledge now we've learned is fitting in $100 billion, right? It's crazy what you can do when the resources are matched to the goal. And you have flexibility in a company to do that.
Yeah, I guess I didn't mean the lack of resources in academia, but the surplus of resources for research talent in the private sector.
There's no surplus.
Yeah, I don't know what surplus you're talking about.
Yeah, I don't think any of us have enough accelerators or enough people or enough data for what we want to do, despite the fact that some of us have many, many, many orders of magnitude more accelerators than others at this panel. But but none of us have enough for the problems we want to take on.
I don't know what you're talking about.
You want to share?
I still like more I'm still fighting for chips.
Having been at Google Brain, I know that even inside of that, there's fights, very vicious fights to get the chips. So, yeah, resource constraint for sure. Because we're in a very special era where we know that the use of more compute leads to better outcomes if deployed well. That's pretty special. Like, that's not always true. Like, doing more, I don't know, brain recordings, like, it wasn't clear that that results in just at least linear or even sublinearly more knowledge. Like, this correspondence between spending money in the form of compute and getting outcomes is like doesn't come around that often, which is why we're in this crazy period, I think.
I don't want to move off of the transition from research, but something that I did want to ask about on the follow-up here is, SPC is a place for a lot of startups. What can startups do with relative limited resources, and what areas should they spend time in that doesn't require the resources that larger foundation model companies or big tech companies have?
I'd like to ask Stephen this question. What can startups do with relatively limited
what does
resources?
A little startup do? Yeah.
Working with Noam Shazier was very illuminating because Character actually, compared to a lot of peers, raised less money, spent less money, bought cheaper compute. And one outcome I learned from that is that you can always trade engineering labor for that cheaper compute. You're going to pay for it. You're just going to pay for it in a very different way. I've also learned that engineering labor is probably where you're more constrained. So it's a trade-off that you should, if you're like a founder, you should very carefully weigh, like, is this what I want my team to spend their time on? Maybe.
You're asking a really difficult question because the definition of an entrepreneur is trying to do something for which you do not have the resources and making it happen anyway. So if we had a very succinct answer, we'd have more abundance in the world, but it's hard. It's kind of a thing that seems to have to be empirically discovered each time for each thing.
I think actually the most precious resource is just focus and attention and alignment. I mean, I don't ask Tara how hard it is to get alignment to do anything at Google because it might be a complicated question. But when you're a small startup, I mean, I'm sure for someone like Alex, he can just say, we're doing this. And then they do it. And he can say, we're spending our money this way. And the money is just spent that way. And even in the days when I was at Mosaic, I could in my own role just say, we're pivoting our whole agenda to this. And the next day the team had pivoted. And doing that at a bigger company where there are lots of folks around, just things move more slowly. And resources can't always buy you time.
I think another thing to add is it's very important to learn how to run experiments with constrained resources. I think that's an important skill. Like, are you really going to tune 15 different learning rates and run experiments? Is that the most important thing to do? So learning how to get the most out of the limited compute you have is really, really important. I feel.
Do you think you learn how to do that? Is that like in an academic setting, and that's a transferable skill, or do you just learn that in the real world?
So to me, at least, academia taught me how to problem solve, right? In general, this is a problem that I have to solve. So it's not exactly what I learned in my PhD, but you transfer those skills anywhere.
Yeah, I think to the point we all said before, we're all always working with constrained resources, just constrained at whatever scale and whatever institution we're in. And you always have to learn and adapt to that, whether it's making things more efficient or whether it's just running fewer experiments or being very strategic about how you explore the design space. Even though, again, some of us have many orders of magnitude more accelerators than others, none of us have as much as we want, and we're all deeply constrained in our own ways.
On the notion of focus and time, and given how fast everything's moving, where do you think the forefront of discovery and research will be? Do you feel like people that are unencumbered by their private focus are going to miss out on the frontiers, or do you think the frontiers are going to be developed in the private sector?
There's a lot of surface area. There are frontiers everywhere. I don't think you can claim that one model is going to solve every problem. I mean, Gemini doesn't do smell. At least, you can correct me on that.
No.
Okay. Is it? Yeah. Big plans on that, I'm sure. But The frontier, as this technology has gotten better, the frontier is everywhere. And you don't have to have, billions and billions of dollars to find a frontier that you can advance and make an impact on the world. In fact, this is kind of a special moment in that respect. It's a great time to be a founder.
Do you guys have any thoughts on that? Do you feel like you're still able to have the sci-fi frontier looking glass in your roles?
Yeah, 100%. That's like there's not many folks that are doing specifically what we do. There's a lot of empty or green or virgin territory out there, like a lot. But I think living in society and being buffeted by news and social media and all that, we gain, I think, an understanding of the space of the possible that's being fed to us as recognized by other people, while by definition those untapped spaces make no noise. And so it's really, really hard to quiet yourself and listen for them and find them and go with your gut when there's just so much information telling you to go somewhere else. So if you have like a calling that's taking you to a strange, empty place, like that's a really important little voice to like protect. Really, really important. Because there's so many forces that are present that will push you in the current stream. And if you're trying to do the thing that somebody else is talking about, like you may be faster than them and you may beat them, but I prefer not to do downhill skiing. I like cross-country skiing. I don't do either in actuality, but in this metaphor, going into weird, I'm too tall. I grew up in Texas and I've fallen, it really hurts. But going into weird spaces is like, to me, one of the most delightful things ever, like being professionally curious and being drawn by that. Now it gets scary because there's nobody else there with you, and so you just sometimes you're lacking the information that's telling you it's all okay. I'm gonna pat your back and tell you you're doing a good job. When you're in deep, fierce competition with other people, it almost is calming because you know what you're doing is at least being paid attention to. So these are radically different emotional lives. To be fiercely competitive in an active space, which is what I think some people do and love to do, or to be in a very weird space where there's literally nobody and like you could be wrong. So.
Did you want to speak to that?
I don't know if this answers the original question, but I think there's a point in all researchers' careers, like maybe around senior PhD, where you start realizing you have more publishable ideas than time to implement those ideas. That feeling doesn't stop going away. You'll have more ideas for like, oh, we could do this, we could do that, we could do this. And I think that is multiplied over all people. And so, yeah, just very strongly echoing that there's so much unknowns out there, and it's fantastic.
I think people end up pursuing things tied to the research they did, or they just take the skills that they learned doing research and apply it elsewhere.
Yes.
Yes, exactly.
I don't know. I think if you look at my research over the years, you can kind of draw some kind of line if you really try. If I had to give a job talk right now, I could probably, connect the dots if I really wanted to. And there's usually some connection. There aren't like giant leaps. But, the stuff I was known for during my PhD versus what I'm doing now are so completely different from each other that, anybody who's only read that work wouldn't recognize what I'm doing today. And that's great. I mean, that's part of growing as a researcher. The skills are transferable. I think to Tara's point, a PhD teaches you how to problem solve. There are lots of problems you can solve.
Like, I think when I got out of my comfort zone and started solving or getting into areas that my PhD wasn't in, I became a stronger researcher. So now I'm much more confident and comfortable of like, okay, A is on fire, I'm gonna go there. Next week, B is on fire, and I'm gonna do that. And I think it was because I learned how to problem solve very well in my PhD. And to me, that was like above and beyond like the number one thing I got out of it.
I just want to like really double click on what you said or just agree with, which is a PhD teaches you how to think and problem solve. Like that's a transferable skill like crazy. There's two other things. One is like you probably have established your intellectual drift. Like you probably have a taste. You probably like certain things. Great, that's really cool. Like keep doing that. Keep exploring. Like you'll be taken to crazy other places. So trust your gut that's developing. The third part, the thing I had to learn the most is transforming from a hammer-oriented mindset to a nail-oriented mindset. So nobody cares about your technology, but people care about the job you solve for them with their technology. there are special cases where companies are willing to pay for technology because they know that they can use that hammer on a nail. That's called getting lucky. That's not called like solving a real problem for people or building a business. And learning how to think from the perspective of like, what good will I do today? What like help will I render for society or for a particular group? That actually I did not learn in my PhD. And that's kind of what they teach you at business school, or that you learn in building a company. And then similarly, you do not get taught how to lead people at all. In fact, you usually receive negative examples of what leadership and management should look like. But there are schools that teach that. They're called military academies, and they're called business schools. And I know a lot of those people that went to those schools. I have like a weird kind of intersection in my family. And they really do learn that discipline. And you should treat those disciplines with respect, like deep respect. Treat leadership with respect and treat customer discovery and obsession with respect, because like they're really important things for bringing what you love to the world. I thought 2 cents.
I also want to highlight, just in terms of transitioning, I mean, Alex, you, if I remember right, you came from a cohort of neuroscientists who have all ended up in machine learning in various places. I mean, I deal with a lot of those folks in my day-to-day lives in various ways. I don't know if there's anything you want to say about that, just having like, you know, kind of transitioned to the machine learning world.
Yeah, there's a lot of like neuroscience refugees that, you know, just saw like the things that the tools that we were using to try to understand how the brain works turned out to be linear algebra. And linear algebra turns out to be the fundamentals of machine learning. And then again, to the point of the feedback cycles, like some people just wanted faster feedback cycles. And so Ari Marcos has a company, Alex Trott. Do you work with Alex?
He's been on my team for 4 years.
Awesome, yeah, okay. And there's plenty of other people that went from like a computational-ish systems and neuroscience life to a machine learning life. And it was really like the problem solving, that how we think, how we were trained to think was super relevant for solving problems. And so like the first things a lot of these people do was like AI interpretability. So like treating the model as a brain, literal like one-to-one transfer from the skills that we learned doing computational neuroscience. And then people forked, right, and got interested in different things, right?
I want to come back to something you said earlier about culture building, and you said it's easier to go from company to company than like research lab to research lab.
No, I didn't say that. I said that the culture is more different company to company than it is from lab to lab. Like academia is more, I would say, homogeneous culturally than companies are.
On that note, I mean, I think you all have had experience with different companies and labs. Like, how have you seen culture being built when there is so much movement now? And how can talent retention be made?
Well, I don't know if talent retention is happening at the moment, just given everything that's happening in the field. I mean, it literally makes headlines when talent leaves, and then talent sometimes comes back 2 weeks later, and that also makes headlines. And it's not unusual. Like, boomeranging is totally normal if somebody goes to another place and really doesn't like it there and comes back. It's, you know, it's a totally normal thing. Like hearing, you know, meta superintelligence as an example where, you know, it like made a headline that a couple people joined the team and then went back to their old companies, and that's like, you know, you hire 100 people, yeah, several people are going to go back. That's just par for the course. So I think there's a lot of talent mobility right now, but yeah, the cultures are really different.
That's at the top level. If you were advising someone earlier in their career, do you not think there's value in staying where you are and trying to build some level of credibility and learning?
So I have high talent retention in my team, actually, so maybe I can tell you our secrets. I think trust that you know that you can grow, that you trust your leadership, trust that you're working on problems that are important. Everybody also has families at home. Trust that your manager will support you inside and outside of work, and like you're on a path to growth. Comp is part of it, but I think it's not all of it. And I think, you know, trying to set people up for success, particularly like by having them drive like major technical things that they're excited by, and showing them how to grow. At least that's how I have tried to retain talent.
I think people have to like what they do. Yeah. You can have fun at work. Even in the 996 crazy AI grind life, you can have fun. And I think people need to have fun, because if they're not having fun there are a lot of options in AI right now, and they can go somewhere else where they're going to have more fun. I think the other part to Tara's point about growth is recognizing that sometimes people will outgrow your team or outgrow your company. Like, I'm thrilled to have former members of my team that have started companies. Like, that's a kind of success. It's also a great recruiting mechanism to say people came to the team, they grew, and they went on to even bigger, better, more independent things. That's a kind of success in and of itself. If I can't offer them further growth in the current context, that's not a bad thing. It's a way to build trust that people will want to join your team and will want to stick around.
And if you're starting a company, your culture is set from the top, set from you. And then really the first like 20 or 30 people kind of lock it in, and it becomes a lot harder to tilt it later. But culture is, I think we think of it as like a wishy-washy corporate term, but it's actually quite precise. It's the sum total of exhibited behaviors in your organization. That's what it is. It's like what people do with and to each other. And there are certain cultures which bind people together like a group of cells to form an organ or a tissue to work in a cohesive manner towards a common goal. And then there are things which cause individual people to dislodge and to optimize for decisions that are good for them and not so much the whole. And that could be they outgrow that tissue, they're no longer a fit. It could be that there is no cohesion in the first place and everybody's locally optimizing for comp, right, which is a thing. But really great cultures also can be localized in larger organizations. So people don't quit companies, they quit managers. And the corollary of that is there are highly localized cultures that are more cohesive or less cohesive. And if your job is to run a company and to achieve goals, the functional output of culture is people can, I mean, there's a word in Arabic called asabiya, and I think in Japanese it's denketsu. And these are words that we don't really have in English, which mean like the ability to harmonize as a group of people to achieve a common goal. And like, that may be esprit de corps, that may be kindness. I don't know what the right English word is, but like a great outcome of culture is the ability for a large group of people to achieve something that no one person could achieve, just like a liver cell can't do the job of a liver, right? There needs to be a group of cells that come together to actually perform a higher function that's otherwise impossible. That's kind of how I think about culture.
It's okay to leave a job if the culture doesn't fit you,
absolutely.
and it's okay if one of your reports leaves because it's just not a good fit for them, and that's going to happen. And I've now like learned, I really like small places, for example. Not everybody's cut out for small places. Not everybody's cut out for big places, and like that's okay. And it took me a long time to figure that out.
Yeah, and I think as the company changes over time, there are different kinds of people who thrive at different stages. I mean, I've watched Mosaic probably turn over 3 full times since we started the company. As we've grown and different people found it to be a fit or didn't find it to be a fit, and people who are some of the biggest contributors early on didn't necessarily fit as we grew into something different or weren't necessarily happy as we grew into something different. I'm curious, Stephen, to try putting you on the spot one more time, because I know you probably can't talk about what's happening at Thinking Machines. What is the culture like?
You could talk about culture, come on.
I mean, it's early stage startup. I would say overall, it's a melting pot of all the other research labs in some ways, and that's very fun. It is also a little bit more of a, so character was very top down, and no one would like make a hard call, and we'd all do that. I find Thinking Machines is a little bit more consensus oriented, mixture of experts, so to speak. I will share one fun story, which is like I started a little anime profile picture like trend, and I tried to convince people, and I got 80% of the company to adopt an anime profile picture internally.
Which was the most common anime?
Ooh, Totoro. Totoro.
That tells you about the culture.
It faded. People eventually started changing back, but there's still a lot more with them than there used to be.
Who were the 20% who didn't? Now I want to know. I assume.
Ironically, 3 of the ex-character guys refused.
No more characters.
I guess a question on culture as well. and this won't be popular for the room, but if you're building a frontier company, what's the most important non-researcher profile to hire for?
Infrastructure. How do you take research and get it into production so that somebody can use it and monetize it?
There's not one. Like you're building a machine, and so like your weakness one day maybe go to market and sales. Your weakness the next maybe a strategic manufacturing executive. Your weakness the next might be a specific kind of accountant, right? And then the next it may be like, oh, we actually need to triple our recruiters, right? So like you're building a machine. The machine has to do something valuable for the world, and like, God, you're building the plane as it flies, and there's a lot of parts in the plane. So like, there's not a simple answer, and like, you kind of got to pay attention to it all. But I'm in a different, I think, position than these guys are.
Yeah, I don't have anyone on the manufacturing side. Product. It's not enough to have interesting research. We all know this in academia. Interesting research counts for nothing if you can't share it. Sharing it in industry is sharing it in a product and getting it into someone's hands where they can understand it and use it and appreciate it and enjoy it, and learning from them how to make it better. I love working with good product people. It's just so much fun.
Where do you find good product people? Like, where do you find that they're grown most? Like, how do you find them?
Definitely not at Databricks. Stay away. Stay away. So, I love our product people at Databricks, and you can't have any of them.
Okay, as a courtesy.
I guess asking, where we are right now, and obviously New York is known for a lot of things, but San Francisco has historically been sort of the center of the technology universe. What are New York's strengths going to be, and like what can we build here that's going to be uniquely best in the world?
Bagels. 100%. Bagels, pizza to a decent extent, but like bagels. No, we look outward. I think that is the difference being here. That even the group of people you see here is a really weird group of people that have a lot of different kind of strange focuses in various ways. And the customers are here, and we get to talk to people who are not in tech and who are not in AI. We don't go to Kiwi parties where it's just a bunch of AI people, or, I don't know what else happens in SF. I haven't been in a little while, but we can look outwards and interact with other kinds of people. And I tend to see lots of interesting application companies here.
I think also time zone-wise, New York is very well positioned, because if you think of the other two hubs, it's the Bay Area and it's London. At least for me, that's what it is, right? And New York is very well positioned to communicate with both of them, and whereas London and California cannot communicate as well. So that puts us in a good position to sort of holistically see things.
And if you don't have a team in London, you get the GPUs first every morning if you're in New York, which is also very convenient.
I mean, the only problem is when I wake up, I have like 600 chats from London, but it's okay.
If you're doing something other than building an AI agent or an AI foundation model, like New York has lots of stuff. Like I was just in San Francisco for a wedding, and the billboards from SFO to the city are always my litmus test of what the hell's going on with venture capital in San Francisco. And it's like agent this, agent that. I really can't even tell you what an agent is. And I was actually there when the Transformer was born in Google Brain. Like, I'm supposed to know what it is. I don't. And so it's super monocultural, and the hype circles in on itself. And in New York, like, you can be exposed to fashion culture, or I'm in the world of fragrance and perfume. Like, you can't do AI for fragrance. You can't do AI applications in an industry that can benefit from it as easily in San Francisco as you can in New York, where there's basically all industries represented.
I don't know. I feel often like a 18-year-old man in 1969 watching the draft go week after week, just waiting for my number to be called, and I'm going to be forced to move to San Francisco. And I'll have to do my tour of duty. There is I really love New York, and I'm trying really hard to dodge the draft. But I do want to counterpoint a little bit and say there is a opportunity cost that comes, because there is a lot more density of tech there. And so if you're in the tech space, it is a easy career move to just go to San Francisco.
I mean, I can tell you one thing I like is I've been in New York for 15 years. Before we started working in London, I liked that I had 3-4 hours to focus on like just pure research before Mountain View ever woke up. And so I felt like I could do tons, like drive lots of individual research and still interact with them. I think I have found as long as I maintain like a constant communication stream with them, it hasn't been an issue. And I've been doing it for like many, many years now.
I will say I love having a culture and things to do outside of work that aren't bouldering. No offense to anyone who does that, but it's the only thing I ever hear about from the people in SF. They're either bouldering or Kiwi parties, or at least that one Kiwi party. And I love going to see a show after work. I love going to dinner. I love seeing my friends. I like seeing my family. I don't know. I don't need to be at my job or adjacent to my job 24/7. It's a lot.
I'm going to push you on that. If we are talking about building startups, and you do want people to be working all the time, do you think that another way to retain top talent is by saying, come to New York and I will never have to draft you to San Francisco?
I mean, yeah. For a while, it was really easy to hire top AI talent in New York because, who was your competition at that point in time? Like, I don't know, Stephen, what your experience was in the character days, but it just kind of felt like for the people who wanted to be here, there weren't that many options relative to being on the West Coast. And it was great. It continues to be really great for hiring people fresh out of PhDs who want to be in New York for lifestyle reasons or family reasons or because it's close to home wherever home is. And it's still an easier time getting people in New York than in SF, and people tend to stick around a little longer in New York than they do in SF. So from a sheer talent perspective, at least for AI researchers, I love being based here and building my team here. I don't know, what was that your experience in the character days, or?
Character had different recruiting issues.
Fair.
And then I guess like the proximity to the East Coast academic institutions. What's
They're East
coming
Coast
out?
academic institutions? They're a little sleepy sometimes, so it's hard to tell. No offense to my alma maters,
I
but
was like, didn't we go there?
But what can New York do to attract folks from NYU, Columbia, Cornell, but then also the Boston or the MIT, Harvards, or CMUs, and what is coming out of there that's uniquely frontier to the East Coast?
be ourselves. We don't have to be SF. New York is great. Go see a show after work. Go live in Brooklyn if you want to live in Brooklyn, or go live in New Jersey if you want to do that. No offense. A little bit.
I do that.
Actually, a little bit.
None taken, I do too. Or Wilson.
I'm sure New Jersey is beautiful this time of year, but go New York is awesome. What do we have why wouldn't you want to be here? Why do you want to be in a place where the only fun is oh, I went bouldering this weekend. Oh, I also went bouldering this weekend. Wow.
I think the biggest complaint I hear, because most of my team actually sits in Mountain View, buying a house. The amount you pay to buy a 3-bedroom in Bay Area is absolutely insane. I think it's just much better value for money here for house.
In New Jersey.
No. Even in New York City though, the price of the Bay Area have gone up like crazy.
It's hard. Both cities are hard.
Huh?
Yeah.
Like what? And, I don't know. Sorry, I'm a Manhattanite. I don't know. There are all these rivers. It gets confusing.
I don't live in the burbs of Jersey, by the way, either. Jersey City. I would say that's a borough.
They're non-burbs?
Yes.
I want to ask one last question before we open it up to the audience for a little bit. If you could each, move on from what you're doing right now and explore one piece of research that no one's doing right now, dream world as far as you want to go, what would it be?
I'm going to do this until I die. This is what I want to do. I don't have a good answer other than that.
I want to work on brain-computer interfaces next. I know that other people are working on that, but that's where I want to head.
I feel like I need a modality. I just feel like, when I look to my left and look to my right, I feel kind of boring doing text. And I feel like AI for taste is kind of a little bit too much in the smell territory. So, no,
We've got a spot for you, Jonathan, whenever you want to come over. Just let me know, man. Taste department, easy peasy.
got it. This is being recorded? Oh, boy. I'm going to hear it from PR on Monday. No, I want to measure everything. I think the limit of intelligence at this point is our ability to measure,
Totally
not
agree.
necessarily our ability to build more intelligent systems. I think we have a huge amount of intelligence right now, and we have a huge amount of ability to improve intelligence in ways we can measure. And the limit of intelligence is our ability to measure things that are important in the world that go beyond multiple choice and other relatively simple things. The world is really complex, and there are a lot of things that we just don't know how to measure right now, and I want to figure out how to measure all of them because I think that, I think we'll get good at anything we can measure.
Can we talk about that later? Because that's
Yes.
awesome. Yeah. It's like,
It is a job interview.
yeah, exactly. The
Ali,
amount of our brain dedicated to sensing
Ali,
things
I'm
way
sorry.
outstrips the amount.
I'm sorry, Ali.
Maybe to add to what you're saying, I still think we are not great at solving like complex reasoning tasks. There's certain things humans just do better than us in pushing the frontier of, AI towards those problems.
We're going to open it up to questions. As always, a reminder, be respectful to what they can and can't talk about, and don't overly pitch,
Just as respectful as we've been to each other.
Exactly.
and don't overly pitch what you're working on as well. But who has questions?
Yep. How do you think about how universities could do a better job teaching researchers how to think about product and business outcomes that they're not doing right now?
Should they?
Yeah, I'm taking the position.
Yeah.
Don't change it. Like, keep training PhDs.
It's like you signed up, so you would have gone to a different school. You would have gone to a business degree if you wanted to learn product, right? But maybe apparently not. What?
Maybe let me answer
Well,
it differently. When I was in academia, like when I was doing my PhD, I was doing speech recognition at the time. We were optimizing like these very academic sets on like phone error rate, which has nothing to do with the product, okay? And then I came to Google and we're optimizing like voice search for a real product. So I would actually twist the question around and say, what can industry do to provide data sets that are more reflective of the problem at hand so that academics are optimizing what everybody cares about?
Your lawyers love you.
Stephen, what do you think the role of academia is here then?
I think academia is a different institution with different goals, and it's stood a long test of time and it's changed a bit, but it mostly trains problem solvers, and that's useful. I think we've emphasized on this panel a few different times, like the core value you get out of a PhD is to become a problem solver and to be able to be faced with nothing but fog of war and still navigate through that. And that's the skill I think we want coming out of the labs.
I want to qualify that because you do get trained to solve problems in business school and you get to do that in other professional contexts. But the goal of academia is to generate new knowledge. And you're solving problems under a certain context with a certain goal, which is generate knowledge, which directly translates to business outcomes sometimes. And like we're seeing this like merge of like research value turning into business value, like in some cases 1-to-1. So it's a special time. But like if you personally would like to learn these things, like to start to engage, right? Like start to try build an app or like seek more industry style problems, I guess. If you want like formal training, like I don't think PhDs culturally, institutionally are set up for that, but you're in an likely in an institution with people around you that are not in your department that are learning some of these skills that you can partner with on a project or something like that. But we can talk more afterwards on the specific details and nuance. So.
I'm going to disagree with everybody up here.
Nice. All right.
So let's go. I love hiring people from Berkeley right now because the Berkeley Computer Science Department does a great job getting lots of people together in big labs to work on big, impactful projects. I look at VLLM or, LLM Arena. And back in the day, that was Spark, which, thankfully pays my salary now. But getting a bunch of people together to try to do something really big that has an impact on the world and motivates a lot of science underneath it feels a little more like industry to me. It's publishable, it's creating new knowledge, it's a different approach to creating new knowledge. It has pros and cons in terms of how it treats the students, who benefits, who doesn't benefit. It can be exploitative if you don't run it properly and if a faculty member is really using it to just start a bunch of companies and their students are the grunt workers to try out ideas. There are ways this can go really wrong, but it's training some people who are really good problem solvers and have an amazing portfolio of work that is much more analogous to what I'm hiring for. It just makes it easier for me to evaluate candidates right now. So to a certain extent, I love it. And when I interact with PhD students, I usually nudge them in the direction of doing a project that isn't aiming for publication. And we all have our complaints about the AI publication system right now and the high schoolers using ChatGPT who are reviewing our papers or whatever we want to accuse them of. But the truest form of validation is adoption. That can be citations, that can be people building on your work, that can be someone in industry using it, or it can be someone actually building on your code and using the actual artifact you built. And everything else is a proxy for adoption in some sense. It may be that adoption of knowledge takes many years, and so you don't get to experience that in the course of a PhD. But there are ways to get a little closer to that if that's what you want. And I think it's true in industry. You just have a different audience for who's adopting it.
We have time for two more questions.
I hope to have it split across. I'm a bit inspired by Tara and Alex here, actually. So Alex, we're talking a lot about PhDs. I agree with you. In America, there's a bit of a monoculture across AAU universities. But what is it like for PhDs coming from England or Germany or Japan, which has different mentorship cultures? I think there are a bit differences, right? It's like you're recruiting heavily from Berkeley, you said. And then, Tara, you brought up an element of trust, and there's an element that you brought up here that I found very interesting of, futures ahead on the challenges of trusting the data that's feeding these models. I would be terrified of a biological tool that's trained on papers that has not accounted for retractions, right? MIT Tech Review ended up talking about how some LLM models are spitting out papers of references to papers that have been retracted because they're highly cited for being retracted, and therefore it's good results. And I fear about this being a mechanism for spreading around bad information that should not be trusted. I wonder, what sort of ways are you looking at about making sure your outputs are actually verifiable? Sorry for the long answer. Question.
I can start. I think Google takes safety very, very seriously. So there's lots of safety checks on the data and filtering. Recitation checking is one very obvious one, but even in audio, because I work in audio, you don't want to have any specific voice in your training data belong to one person. So they actually get embeddings of all the speakers and throw away any clusters that are primarily from major speakers. And then making sure that our models are factual. These are metrics that are tracked. Making sure that we punt on any questions that we're not supposed to. This is not unique to Google. Everybody's doing this, but it's taken very, very seriously. And there's lots of different checks and filters in the pre-training and post-training to ensure that we're acting as responsibly as we can. I'm sure it's the same in Think Machines and everywhere else. It's not unique to Google.
I'll throw in one more thing, just as someone who isn't really building major models at this point. The other way that you end up with a highly cited paper that has been retracted and run into it is called Google Scholar. This is not a unique problem to AI. Data is complicated, and I feel like in AI we love to say that everything is new and everything is different, and we're in a different paradigm now or what have you. I don't know. My general theory on computing is that nothing is really that new. I mean, we even, we see old AI papers that have similar ideas to today in a lot of cases. RL magically made a comeback recently. I'm reading a lot of computer science papers from the 1960s right now because I think we're in a similar moment in terms of, as I mentioned before, we have plenty of intelligence and not a lot of ability to measure it or figure out what to do with it necessarily in a lot of contexts. And in the 1960s, there was something called the software crisis, which was very similar. So, it's easy to say AI has data issues or, there are lots of challenges in AI. Yeah, there are lots of challenges in processing information and distributing it to the world.
Last question.
Hi, I'm a software engineer at Meta, and I use ChatGPT every day.
Not Llama?
Also Llama. It's MetaMate, but I'm observing two interesting problems with my use case with ChatGPT. So one is, a lot of times, software engineers will deliberately write garbage code to guard other people from stealing their scope. I'm not sure how do you actually tune the data to actually train the model to solve that problem, or is that even? I think that accounts for a decent amount of economic values, but it's very hard to solve it in a technical sense, right? And
Models can't solve humans. At the end of the day, we live in a society of humans, and we can't. If AI is going to solve everything, we're going to need superintelligence that replaces all the humans.
Okay, and then the second problem is so one problem is data, right? And the second problem is some problems are very hard to verify, right? And I'm in touch with CUDA a lot daily, and ChatGPT is not very good at that problem, and it's very expensive to verify whether a CUDA code works or not. So
This is why I love measurement so much. There's so much to measure, and we have no idea how to do it. I think that's a great problem. Now add to that problem, how do we measure whether two people had good AI-augmented communication with each other? What does that even mean? And yet we're building AI into a lot of our communication tools, and how do we know if we did a good job? There's just so much that we don't know how to measure, and so much that we now have to understand about our world that we never really had to think about this deeply or this quantitatively before, because now we have computers that can do some of these tasks. I think it's great. I wish I had a good answer for you, but I think that's going to be the frontier of knowledge perhaps for decades. And I think that's really exciting.
Well, I want to thank you all so much for coming and sharing everything that you shared, and everyone for coming to attend. I'll say one last time, if you are interested in learning about, whether with us or otherwise, what it would mean to start a company or to take a sabbatical from your research or work to go explore the universe, we certainly love that. Trying to find more people like them. So come find us afterwards, and I don't know if they can stick around or not, but if not, thanks again, everyone.